This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Going hostile, Teva Pharmaceuticals launches an unsolicited bid for Mylan, and it has the potential to shake up the global drug industry.
Food fears. Bird flu strikes a chicken farm in Iowa, a state that produces nearly 1 in every 5 eggs consumed in this country.
Your financial future, the simple savings tactic that can dramatically increase your nest egg. We have all that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for this Tuesday, April the 21st. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Bill Griffith, in tonight for Tyler Matheson.
And I'm Sue Herrera. The red-hot market for big pharma deals just got hotter. Teva Pharmaceuticals is making an unsolicited bid for Mylan, a combination that would create the world's biggest generic drug company by sales. The price tag, $40 billion, the largest potential takeover in the drug industry this year. Shares of Mylan soared more than 8%, and Teva shares were also higher. The deal has the potential to change the landscape of the industry, but there's no guarantee anything about it will be easy. Meg Terrell has more.
Another day, another deal in the drug industry. Generic drug giant Teva's offer for rival Mylan comes on the heels of Mylan's offer to buy competitor Perrigo, a move some suspected to be defensive. It all contributes to record deal activity among drug companies.
It's a consolidating industry. You have to be big or you will get acquired.
But Mylan is not expected to go easily. Last week, the company preemptively rejected the idea of a merger with Teva, saying it would be a cultural clash and could raise antitrust concerns. Teva dismissed those issues in its offer today, saying it expects it could close the deal by the end of this year. The Israeli drug giant says a combination with Mylan would create a transformative generic drug company with annual revenue of $30 billion. Analysts also hailed the $2 billion in potential cost cuts Teva said it anticipated. In addition to generic drugs, Teva makes the branded multiple sclerosis medicine Copaxone, which brings in billions of dollars a year. But it faces generic competition of its own, which may be leading Teva to seek growth through acquisitions.
Teva clearly feels they need to do something now that Momenta is going to come out with a generic Copaxone.
Investor Les Funtleiter says the deal could raise questions from regulators, concerned about rising generic drug prices and shortages due to industry consolidation. And some analysts believe that Mylan may seek a higher price. Bernstein says it could ask for up to $90 a share. And if history is any guide, this will be a long battle. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Meg Terrell.
Well, on Wall Street, that proposed deal in the drug industry helped prop up the NASDAQ, but otherwise the major averages fell on uninspiring earnings reports. By the close, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped by 85 points, closed back below 18,000 at 17,949. The NASDAQ was up by 19. The S&P fell by 3 points. Bob Pisani has more now on today's profit reports and the message corporate America is sending to investors.
We are finally in the heart of earnings season, and two clear trends are emerging. Number one, earnings have stopped dropping as more companies than normal beat estimates. That's good news. And second, revenues are bad and they're getting worse. That's very bad news. Now, almost to a company, weak revenues are being mostly or largely blamed on the strong dollar, and with some justification. The dollar index rose almost 10% on the quarter. That's an amazing move. The strong dollar hurts revenues because it reduces the value of money that is earned in other currencies. Now, DuPont, for example, said sales were down 9%, with the majority of the drop due to the strong dollar. Dover, which makes drilling equipment and pumps and refrigeration and food equipment, says revenues are 4% lower because of the stronger dollar. And Harley-Davidson said sales fell 4%, hurt by currency and by lower shipments. These are just examples. Other companies are reporting similar problems. Now, obviously, if your revenues are mostly in the U.S., it's not much of a problem. But for multinational companies that make much more than half their revenues overseas, this is a big problem. Now, here's why. The stronger dollar has made U.S. multinationals less competitive. And that is one reason why U.S. stocks are lagging their global peers in 2015. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.
Two other Dow components out with results today, Verizon and Travelers. Telecom giant Verizon reported earnings that beat, but revenue fell short. Travelers missed on both fronts, but it did hike its dividend to 61 cents a share. Shares of Verizon fell a fraction, but Travelers was off 4%.
6 senators have asked the Federal Communications Commission and the Justice Department to reject Comcast's proposed $45 billion merger with Time Warner Cable. This call came from Democratic Senators Al Franken, Ed Markey, Ron Wyden, Elizabeth Warren, Richard Blumenthal, and the independent Bernie Sanders. In their letter, the senators said that they believe a combined company would lead to higher prices for consumers and fewer choices. Executives from the two companies are meeting with regulators tomorrow to talk about this deal. Comcast, we should point out, is the parent company of CNBC, which produces this program.
A trader has been arrested for his alleged role in the 2010 flash crash. The Justice Department charged a high-frequency trader in the United Kingdom with illegally manipulating the futures markets, which the DOJ says contributed to the flash crash. The department alleges that the trader profited by about $40 million for his scheme by using an automated trading program to manipulate futures tied to the S&P 500 index.
Well, it turns out the biggest job cuts last month occurred in states with a large oil and gas industry. According to a new report out by the Labor Department, Texas lost the most jobs at 25,000. That was followed by Oklahoma and Pennsylvania. The drop in oil prices, of course, that began last summer has caused energy companies to cut back on drilling. Overall, unemployment rates fell in 23 states in March, according to this report. They rose in 12 and remained unchanged in 15.
And, Bill, some of those job cuts came from Houston-based Baker Hughes. The oil and gas services company, which is being acquired by Halliburton, cut 17% of its total workforce during the first quarter. It closed facilities and it reported earnings below Wall Street estimates. The company says its first quarter results are a reflection of declining crude prices, and it expects a falling rig count to weigh on the second quarter. The shares dropped nearly 1.5%.
So job cuts and the direction of oil prices are just some of the issues being discussed by energy leaders at the annual must-attend conference for that sector. Brian Sullivan has more now on that gathering. It's called the IHS Energy Sarah Week. It's in Houston.
Houston, the oil capital of America, but this week, arguably the oil capital of the globe. Thousands of industry insiders and executives are gathered right here to try to understand not only what has happened with the price of oil and gas, but where the industry is going in the months ahead. This time at the conference last year, the price of crude oil, $100 a barrel. I asked Dan Yergin how the mood of the conference has changed since then.
A year ago, the mood was that the oil price was going to be $100 a barrel, and that was the new normal. There was a lot of concern about costs that at $100 a barrel. Now I would say the mood of this conference today is gritty realism and a recognition that it's cyclical.
And the reason so many have gathered here is because you've got top-notch speakers, CEOs of the biggest companies in the world. Case in point, BP CEO Bob Dudley. We caught up with him and I asked him how he sees the oil market playing out over the next year.
Well, I think it's lower for longer. Don't know how long. Several years is absolutely a possibility. The U.S. is increasing oil production. The rigs have come down from 1,600 operating rigs onshore in the U.S. to 750, and yet oil production keeps going up.
Price is obviously the hot button issue here. Where is the price of oil and gas going to go in the months and quarters ahead? But the other hot topic here, really twofold. Iran, but also crude oil exports, and whether or not we will see the export ban from America lifted. I asked Dan Yergin what he thinks.
I think that there is a sense of forward motion on it, and is it going to be simply eliminate a ban that's 40 years out of date, or are they going to kind of do some regulatory jujitsu to continue to be able to get some more out?
And of course, the other question with that is, if the crude export ban is ever lifted, what would that mean for the oil industry? What would that mean for the price of oil? This is an industry that is in a bit of turmoil, but the oil industry, a notoriously optimistic one. So as you might imagine, almost everybody we've talked to thinks the price of oil will be higher in 12 months than it is today. For Nightly Business Report in Houston, I'm Brian Sullivan.
On the West Coast, another conference is taking place. Tens of thousands of tech industry veterans are gathering at the world's largest security conference. And since so many big corporations are vulnerable to attacks, the cybersecurity industry is booming. Eamon Javers reports from San Francisco.
This is the RSA Cybersecurity Conference. It's one of the biggest industry events every single year. Behind me, we've got one company here that set up its own Star Wars bar. Behind them, the NSA is recruiting cybersecurity experts to come work for the government. A lot of focus here, though, this year on the potential IPO companies that are displaying their wares here today. Experts tell us they're expecting as many as 7 of these companies will go public over the next 12 to 18 months. But for investors, this can be a confusing jumble. A lot of companies offering a lot of similar things. What experts tell us is that you've got to really do your homework to understand the difference between all these companies.
First of all, you have to look at the underlying technology of the organization. They've got to do a deep dive. It's no longer about blocking known signatures. It really is about detection and response. There are a lot of companies that are making that claim that they can do that.
But even before this conference started, there's been some controversy here. We talked to Chris Roberts. He's a cybersecurity expert who has theories on how U.S. aviation is vulnerable to hacking through the entertainment systems that airlines are putting in to all their airplanes these days. Roberts was on a flight. He tweeted out some information about the vulnerabilities, and he says he was detained by the FBI and airport security when he landed.
I tweeted when I was midpoint between Denver and Chicago, landed in the Syracuse. Everybody on the plane was told to sit down. 2 uniformed officers and 2 FBI agents came onto the plane. I got taken off the plane, very civilized, very nice guys, and then a third joined them, and we had a several-hour lengthy conversation.
The FBI told us they'd have no comment on Chris Roberts' situation. We also talked to United. United said they're assuring people that there is no danger of hacking of their systems the way Chris Roberts describes. Nonetheless, they say they've decided that it will be inappropriate for him to fly on their flights in the future. So that is going to be set in stone. Meanwhile, guys, they're doing a lot of business here at the RSA Cybersecurity Conference. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eamon Jabbers in San Francisco.
Still ahead, the impact on the price you pay for groceries if the bird flu outbreak spreads.
Bluebell Creameries is pulling all of its products off the shelves. The company, which distributes frozen desserts to about half of the country, has issued a nationwide recall after listeria was found in 2 cartons of ice cream. The recall includes ice cream, frozen yogurt, and sherbet, and it covers products from all of its manufacturing facilities. In a statement, the company's CEO apologized to all Bluebell customers.
And in the poultry industry, there are growing concerns tonight over the highly contagious bird flu virus. Efforts are underway to stop it from spreading after discovering another outbreak at a commercial egg facility in Iowa, which is the nation's largest egg-producing state. Morgan Brennan has more for us tonight.
This week, the U.S. Department of Agriculture confirmed another case of bird flu in Iowa. The affected facility is Sunrise Farms, owned by privately held Sonstegard Foods Company. Sonstegard says this farm houses 4 million layer hens, or hens that lay eggs, and that it went to, quote, great lengths to prevent its birds from contracting avian influenza. Now the property is under quarantine, while officials decide how to dispose of the flock. Experts say that development is troubling.
We have to respond to the challenge with commensurate action and investment. Up to now, we haven't had to do what I believe we're going to have to do in the future. But the industry adapts, and the industry adopts new technology and new techniques.
This new case is the largest reported by the USDA since the outbreak started late last year, bringing the total number of chickens and turkeys affected by bird flu to 6.5 million. Cases have been reported in a dozen states, including Minnesota, Missouri, Arkansas, and the Dakotas. In Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker even declared a state of emergency, issuing quarantines and enlisting the state's National Guard to help with cleanup. To be sure, there have been no human cases detected in the U.S., and the USDA says there's little risk to human health. But there is growing risk to the poultry industry.
We will have to develop stricter biosecurity measures to eliminate any possible contact between migratory waterfowl and their droppings and our commercial farms. I have every confidence that it can be done.
A growing list of countries, including China, South Korea, Canada, and Mexico, have banned or limited poultry imports from the U.S. because of this flu. And food companies are feeling the pain as well. Hormel Foods says full-year earnings will come in at the lower end of previously stated guidance. Investors are steering clear of other poultry companies as well, sending shares of Tyson Foods, Sanderson Farms, and Pilgrim's Pride lower since the start of the year. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Morgan Brennan.
Farah Aslam joins us now to talk more about the bird flu and how it might impact the price of eggs and poultry for you. Farah, nice to have you here tonight. Let's start with your sense of the bird flu first and whether or not it can be contained quickly, as our experts in that piece just said that he thought it would. Do you agree with that?
The U.S. poultry industry, both egg, turkey, and chicken, are responding very actively to the bird flu threat. They're investing capital, and we do anticipate that the problem will be contained. It will take some time, but probably within a year, normally food companies are able to offset the losses from bird flu.
How close are we to finding a way to prevent this to begin with? This just comes up time and again, and it just spreads, and we quarantine, but then it happens again. What can we do to prevent this in the future?
We have numerous scientists across the country working on this issue, but it does take some time. But the best near-term solution is going to be better biosecurity, and you're already seeing the poultry industry move to restrict access to these farms. But unfortunately, just right now, it's being spread by migratory fowl, as your previous piece stated, and that should decline as the migration curtails, probably by the summer.
What about the price of these commodities? You said that it's hit eggs, turkey, and chicken across some 12 states. But maybe we have a little bit of a gain because seasonally it's not a big egg season. But what about prices? How much can we expect those to go higher?
Well, now we definitely have about 1% of the poultry supply or egg supply in the U.S. out offline. And so we do expect an impact to egg prices moving up. Right now, egg prices are down 5 to 10% year over year. Going forward, we expect prices to tick up. Just for example, in turkeys in the last month, turkey prices have increased about 5% as we've seen more and more turkeys be impacted by bird flu.
All right, Farah, thank you very much. Farah Aslam with Robert Stevens.
Thank you for having me.
We have late earnings from Yahoo, and they disappointed. That's where we begin tonight's market focus. The tech giant's earnings fell by 60% from a year ago. Revenue also missed Wall Street's estimates as its display advertisement business has been stalling. Shares fell initially, but then rebounded before the close. The stock was, though, off a fraction to $44.49. It was the opposite story for Amgen, though. That company easily topped earnings and revenue consensus on strong drug sales. Company also increased its full-year guidance. Shares spiked right after the report. Before the close, the stock was up 1.5% to $168.46. And Chipotle delivered kind of a mixed report today. Its earnings were above estimates, but the revenue was lower than what analysts had been expecting. Overall, the popular fast casual restaurant chain saw sales growth slow down. That sent shares of Chipotle down after the close, but before the end of trading, shares closed up a fraction at $692.52.
Bill, Under Armour saw its earnings fall in its most recent quarter because of currency volatility. The athletic gear maker managed to beat on both the top and the bottom lines, though, and it did hike its 2015 revenue guidance. Still, shares tumbled almost 5% to $83.52. Whirlpool is hiking its quarterly dividend by 20%. The new payout of 90 cents a share will be payable in June to shareholders on record as of May 15th. The yield on that dividend is nearly 2%. Shares were off slightly today to $193.97.
A new retirement survey has some good news and some bad news. First, the good news. American workers and retirees are more confident about their ability to retire. The bad news is there's little evidence that they are actually taking the necessary steps to reach that goal. All of this is according to the most comprehensive annual reports on retirement by the Employee Benefit Research Institute. Sharon Epperson joins us now with more on that report and how a simple change in savings could go a long way. I mean, if people's daily expenses are just too high, it's not unreasonable to expect that's why they're not saving right now, right?
It's not unreasonable to expect that, and so that's why we're looking at about 57% of American workers who have saved less than $25,000 for retirement. But what's really startling to me was the number of people who said that they could save just a little bit more. 7 out of 10 workers said that they could save, even if it's just $25 a week more, they could add that to their retirement savings, and that can make a considerable difference.
Yeah, because if you compound it, right, if you start early enough and you just do maybe 25, 35, I mean, if you can, just that little bit over 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, it adds up.
Now, of course, a lot of viewers reached out to me today and said, hey, $25 is still a lot for me, but it really can add up, and you can do it in just giving up a couple things. If you get to that $1,300 by the end of the year, that's how much $25 a week will be for you. Put that money in a Roth IRA, for example. You could have, by the age of 67, if you start when you're 30, over $48,000 saved just in contributions. And you add to that a 4% return. That's not asking too much, hoping your portfolio increases that much annually. $110,000 in extra savings for your retirement. So a little bit can go a very long way.
But how do you free up that extra $25?
So this was what was interesting. People just said things that you would expect. You know, we could eat out less. We could stop buying coffee. We could also pack your lunch, streaming videos, cut down on that. But a lot of people, about a quarter of the people in this survey said they wouldn't have to give up anything to eke out an extra $25 a week. So it can be done.
Wow.
It just really takes the discipline and austerity to do it.
And start. I think people are just so scared to start.
Exactly, just start. Thinking that that's just too small and I'm never going to be able to retire anyway, but a little bit will help.
Somebody out there tonight, they've been inspired.
I hope so.
Get the $25 out there.
If anybody can do it, she can.
Absolutely. Sharon Epperson, as always, thank you. And
pleasure.
to read more about saving for retirement, head to our website, nbr.com.
And coming up, the new gold rush, or perhaps better said, the green rush. Meet the entrepreneurs that want to turn cannabis into big business. The first in a 3-part series, Marijuana and Money, is next. Here's a look at what to watch for tomorrow. Dow Components, McDonald's, Boeing, and Coke report before the opening bell. After the closing bell, we'll hear from AT&T, eBay, and Facebook. Existing home sales for March are due out, and General Electric shareholders will gather for the company's annual meeting. And that's what's on the agenda for Wednesday.
Elsewhere, the results of a new large-scale study add to the body of evidence that finds no link between a specific vaccine and autism, even among children who are at increased genetic risk.
In over 95,000 children, we found that there was no evidence of a harmful association between the MMR vaccine and the development of autism spectrum disorders.
Dr. Anjali Jain of the Lewin Group, a health care consulting firm, led that study, which was published by the Journal of the American Medical Association. The research comes after low immunization rates led to outbreaks of measles in the U.S. earlier this year, including one stemming from California's Disneyland.
There's a brand new breed of entrepreneurs, and they're growing out of the budding pot economy. In the first of a 3-part series called Marijuana and Money, Dina Gosofsky takes us inside a startup that found an opportunity at the intersection of medical marijuana and technology.
He's a little freaky moving ahead of us.
But robotics is the future, and we wanted to represent the cannabis industry by creating a robotic solution.
One company, Potbotics, says it's combined science, technology, and weed.
It's called PopBot.
A robot meant for medical marijuana dispensaries and clinics. An idea conceived by a PhD and a 23-year-old.
We're actually father and son. This is my father. What we created was a robotic solution for dispensaries and clinics to help educate patients more on how the medicinal benefits of cannabis affect them based on their specific ailment. It's really easy. You come up to it with the ailment you're suffering from, type in some basic information like age, gender, weight, what state you're in, and then a list of symptoms associated with that ailment will automatically be populated. You'll select out of those, and then a personalized cannabinoid level for that ailment will be generated. Our other product from Popbotics is BrainBot. We're putting on an EEG which will help look at the brain waves of this patient. We're trying to actually quantify the effects of cannabis and the responses that the brain waves have to cannabis.
Eric is a medical marijuana patient. He suffers from anxiety.
This actually will amplify the brain waves in order for us to see what is actually going on in the head. Of course, Dina won't be smoking, but it'll give us a good baseline for what a non-smoker's brain looks like. Now that this is applied, we could actually take a look at your brain activity right here.
To the untrained eye, the scan might look the same, but a neurologist would see that a change in frequency in one of Eric's brainwaves shows a deeper state of drowsiness and relaxation.
We're hoping doctors will buy BrainBot and use it with their patients to personalize cannabis recommendations for patients suffering from epilepsy and other neurological disorders.
For Nightly Business Report, I'm Dina Gosofsky in Los Angeles.
To read more about this company and the other marijuana startups, head to our website, nbr.com. And tomorrow, why the emergence of the legal cannabis industry is causing some real estate values to soar. I got a sneak peek at that script. It's really a good story.
You watch. I mean, I know it's a controversial issue. Plenty of people are against legalizing marijuana, but from an economic standpoint, it is going to help a lot of states with tax revenues, real estate prices. All of that is happening right now in various states, that's for sure.
Well, that does it for Nightly Business Report for tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for watching.
I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.